Away from Mombasa to Kasese to Pakwach in West Nile, Mr. Museveni has not constructed even an inch of rail. But that rail was not to serve us, it was to steal from us. It was to take our things to himself, to themselves. Carry the copper, carry the cotton, carry the tobacco, carry the whatever to themselves. They were not roads to serve us. They were roads to rob us. So they focus on things that have no impact or no great impact on people. The state of the people of Uganda. Mr. Museveni actually acknowledges that, though he keeps saying that what is now remaining is dealing with household poverty, but that is the very thing that is the most important, the situation of people. He says we have now solved this, we are now going to deal with household poverty. At independence, the independence leaders of Africa, the whole of Africa, their vision was very focused on three things: dealing with ignorance, disease, and poverty. Three things the independence leaders were focused, because those are things that bedevil the people themselves: ignorance, poverty, and disease. And they designed programs to attack these. That is not in the vision, at least not in the achievements that are being talked about. How we have gone in dealing with ignorance, with poverty, with the disease. Nothing. So, the celebrations, the propaganda is totally misleading. Of course, the other thing they endlessly celebrate is security ushered in by the NRM. Because again, they think that security and peace is purely the absence of war. That's what they equate security and peace. They don't know that you can't move in this town holding your phone. Your hand may be cut off. They don't know how insecure people feel in their homes about their property. I told you some time back, I was in the village. People now sleep with their goats because they fear their goats will not be there by morning. They sleep in the coffee chambers, guarding, you know. I myself am a victim here in Kasangati. Whenever I grow some maize, I literally have to sleep there to eat a bit of it. You know, the insecurity, and the people who are moving around, grabbing whatever, have been pushed completely to the margins. They have no means of subsistence, so they have to now become wild. It is a creation of what they are celebrating. Because what they are celebrating is what has been extracted from everybody else. The people celebrating, you can count them on your hands. The rest of the people, very sad for them. I felt very sad when I saw the rain harassing them at the celebration in Kololo. The ones who come for Pirao. you know. The rain was not kind to them this time. But they have no food. So if you make a party at Kororo and you make plow or there is some soda, people will come to share in that. But they are not sharing in the prosperity. They are demonstrating their marginalization only. They are not part of the celebration. So, if you look at poverty, which is where the country must be concerned, that our young people who have no jobs, no hope, nothing, are impoverished. Our young people who are indeed running away at great risk to go to Arab countries, to go to other places to look for survival. That is what any government worth its name should be focusing on. Not telling us, showing us pictures of Entebbe Expressway built at a cost that could have built maybe 10 of those. And all the rest of the money is in the pockets of these thieves who masquerade as leaders of our country. So poverty up to now, officially, and this is officially, I don't consider that official figures in Uganda mean much, because our statistics, as you know, are very corrupted like the rest of the things. You saw the census the other day, which is what we are going to get figures from, the census. Household surveys, which was going on, fake. So it's very difficult to have real figures of the situation in our country. But nonetheless, officially, at least they still say 30% of Ugandans are below the poverty line. That's official. You know? And the poverty line they talk about, even those above it are poor. So the line has been put very low, actually. But those below that line are 30%, 1 in every 3. And they say that those above it, the greatest majority, are vulnerable to going below. If there is any slight shock, then immediately they plunge below. That is the real situation that our country should be grappling with. The education, I don't need to belabor, dealing with ignorance. Education is a crisis for our country, both in terms of the content of education, but more especially the delivery of education services in our country. Less than 25% of school-going people finish elementary school, primary school. Less than 25% finish primary school. Less than 16% finish lower secondary education, ordinary level. And lower than 6% finish advanced higher secondary education. That is our situation. So we are a country that cannot educate its people. That's the reality that we are in today. And of course, if there is any thing called apartheid. Education in Uganda is one that demonstrates the policy of apartheid, separate development. Those who are in UPE are on a completely different trajectory of development. Those in private schools, and private schools also have classes, are on a different trajectory of development. And then there are those in international schools. So there are three separate paths of development for our people. UPE, those are like in the condemned section. UPE. And that's why they abandon it. Many don't go, I'm now continue. Then you have the private school, which squeezes the parents. Part of the poverty we are talking about is caused by attempting to educate children in the homes. The poverty. Selling land, selling what, to educate people. I told the people of Mbarara that if Museveni became a child today, he would never go to Ntare school where he went. He would never. He would remain there in the village with his tire shoes, which they used to put on. He would never go to school. Under the system he has created, he would never have gotten education coming from the family in which he came. Those are the things that should be focused on by the country, not the GDP. Where is the GDP in all this? Why doesn't it produce education? Why doesn't it pay teachers? Teachers are the most, disincentivized workers, public workers we have. No incentive at all for teachers. Everybody despises a teacher. If you see a country where teachers are despised, you know that country is doomed. And that's what we have today. Teacher training. If you go to teacher training institutions, shameful. So again, just putting the context of their celebrations. Yes, they are celebrating, but they are dancing on our graves. They must understand. A child in UPE, we have talked about this very many times. A child in UPE in the city gets a capitation payment of money from government of 10,000 for a year to educate a child. 10,000. In the villages, it is 7,000. $2 to educate our children for a year. And you are in Kororo celebrating, killing the children of Uganda. So that is poverty, ignorance. What about disease? Health care. Africa as a whole realized that health care is critical. They made the Abuja Declaration that every African country should at least minimum spend 15% of their budget on health. Minimum 15%. Only 2 countries have so far hit that target at some point. That is South Africa and Cape Verde. The rest of the Africans wallowing in terrible health care situation. In Uganda, we don't have anything called health care system at all. We don't. None of you media people has a health care file somewhere in our health care system. A file that follows your health. To know when you need, if you are a lady, when you need a pap smear, and they invite you, it's your time to do a pap smear. It's your time to do a mammograph, to check your breast to see whether it's all right. It's your time to do a test for your prostate. It's your time to take this immunization because there is somebody following your health. Health care is not about treating the sick. Health care is to ensure people remain healthy. We don't have anything like that in this country. Zero. The only children under 5, and that's where health parameters are critical because they follow you through life. Children under 5, only 32%, and I told you these percentages are also fake. Definitely much less, I believe. But the official record is that only 32% of children under 5 were registered at birth. In other words, the greatest majority of children in Uganda are not known by the state, actually. They were not born in the health care system. They are not known. They are born on the road, in the home, and they are not known. Only 32% were registered. That's where health care starts. So no doubt, we still have high infant deaths, high young children, neonatal deaths. Of course, maternal deaths are still very problematic. Mothers who die in childbirth, you know, needlessly, totally needlessly. Developed countries will generally have less than 5 deaths of every 100,000 births. They'll have less than 5. We are still in the hundreds ourselves who die, you know. These are the matters on which they should account. Why should our women still be dying? Not talking about factories. Whose factories are you talking about? Chinese, instead of making the things in China, they are making them here. All right. So maybe you may get a little more tax, fine. But where does the tax go? You know? Because this is where they are, the real, what's the situation of people? I don't need to talk about mental health in Uganda. You know, again, another stark reminder of what our system and our country is. Healthcare, mental health. You saw recently, government figures themselves, that 14 million people are mentally ill. This was official. And again, take those numbers with a bit of care. So we live now in a country of mad people, mentally ill people. A lot of it caused by depression. Depression because of the stressful situations in which we live. Depression. all this is avoidable. That is where the discussion ought to be. Not on electricity that people can't afford. One of the things, apart from ignorance, disease, and poverty, one of the things that obviously impacts our people significantly are habitations, where they live, homes, houses, you know? What is the housing situation of our people? You know? Up to now, 40 years of the wise leadership of Mr. Museveni. Of course, wise in the brackets. But 32% of our people still live in grass-thatched huts. Grass-thatched huts without windows. 32%. That's an indictment. Because you'll never have healthy people without habitations that are meaningful. So that is, I could go on and on, but I just wanted to highlight a few things simply to underscore the point that we are in two worlds. There is a world of the robbers who have been robbing us for this long, where they live in opulence, celebration of what they are doing, and there is the world of the ordinary people, which they don't talk about, which they don't feel their pain. They don't represent. And we have to remind them about that. The second point of propaganda, again, just to put it in proper context, is the ongoing discussion about corruption. Because I'm sure, again, you have seen a lot of talk about corruption and how we should fight it. And even Mr. Museveni shamelessly trying to position himself as one who can deal with corruption. And I think the latest talk was prompted by the exposure that was made by ordinary people who started that social media campaign of exhibitions of what has gone wrong. And we should thank and celebrate them for their initiative and effort. Our brothers Pius Ntongo, Agatha Twaire, is a young man called others who have been supporting them, Nicholas Opio and others who have been supporting them. And exposure, it has revealed to us has a potent effect, has a good effect in causing those who are stealing to panic, to unruffle them. So that's where it started, with exposure. And especially the exposure of corruption in Parliament. Of course, even all the others were exposure of corruption in the health sector, the roads which are terrible, and other places. But in Parliament, they were able to point specifically to monies that were being siphoned out of the budget. Of course, earlier on, there was the Mabati crisis also in Parliament. And so, now, Mr. Museveni jumped in to say he's going to crash all this. In other words, he has now separated, he's trying to position himself as separate from this and one who can deal with it. And we need to contextualize what is going on there. So first, corruption, I would categorize it in two areas. There is, first of all, official, institutional corruption that we should, which is even more dangerous than the private corruption. Actually thrives on that official type of corruption. And Museveni has been leading both, the official and the private corruption. He is the architect, he's the constructor of the corruption system in Uganda. And he's the promoter. He promotes what he constructed and defends it. So that's why we are in a very difficult situation. Because at the very pinnacle of power is where the problem actually comes from, grows from, and spreads to other places. And I'd like to simply remind our country, and especially Mr. Museveni, about his corruption. His corruption did not start in the government. No. I have talked about some of it right from the time I interfaced with him in the bush. We started dealing with corruption. There was corruption in the bush. People getting things in operations, or some people sending us some things to use, and a few people grab them and use them. And in the bush there was something called Besigye commander. That, you know, if you come putting on a good trouser, say, hey, you, hiyo navaa nini? Toa, hiyo ni size yangu. You remove your trouser and give it to him because he says, yeah, that's my size. Whatever good thing you have, they grab it. That's why you had, you know, some people were eating chicken while others were eating nothing, you know. And this, you know, started, so we started having problems with this system right in the bush. And we were talking about it, some of us, you know, amongst ourselves. And he would defend it. Said, don't touch this, Because these, although they are corrupt, they are the fighters. They are good fighters. So don't touch them. When the war is over, we shall see how to deal with this. That time, accountability indeed was something unheard of. Largely because of the nature of operations. But even after accounting for NRM resources, what was collected from our supporters and how it was used, NRM accounts, nobody in NRM knows. And I'm talking about this with a lot of authority. And this is what later on spread to bedevil the NRA and the UPDF. And that's how the war in the North lasted 20 years. Because it became an industry for self-enrichment. On the one hand, there is what they call operation fund, operation money for commanders, which is not accounted for. And in war, that becomes, it keeps on being increased by creating all kinds of threats. Oh, this is going to happen, we need more money, and more money would be siphoned there, and so on and so forth. So we have had corruption, and again defended by Mr. Museveni. In fact, that's, I think, partly how he even got in trouble. General Muntu got in trouble with him, because General Muntu was army commander. And General Muntu thought, that he, among other things, he was in charge of discipline. And he would arrest some officers and get in trouble because of that. and I think that's why he ended up where we all are. So this corruption is not, from Museveni, the architect, is not a new thing. And when we got into government, that's why he moved quickly to capture the institutions, all institutions. Because you can't have accountability unless you have institutions that function. So he went in and captured all the institutions. Of course, in the transition, the institutions themselves had problems. He was the president, he was the Speaker of Parliament. You can't allow such a kind of thing, because Parliament is supposed to check on the executive. So if you are the Parliament and you are the executive, how do you check on yourself? And so in the Parliament, if there was something he didn't want, he would come and sit there now as the Speaker and say, now we must pass this thing today, and and then he goes back the other side to implement it. and by the time even that ended in the Constitution, because the Constitution of '95 changed that. But then he went ahead to emasculate those who were in Parliament. And that emasculation of Parliament has been going on until now. The Parliament is officially a rubber stamp. Absolutely. There was a period of a bit of struggle after the '95 Constitution. But that struggle has ended very, very firmly in his favor. I think what happened last week when he took back the budget, if there was anybody in doubt, we must have confirmed that there is no parliament, absolutely nothing. Just the House and some people there collecting some allowances, but nothing. There's no parliament. All this is official corruption. So I was saying there is official and private corruption. This is official, Then he went into the privatization exercise, which everybody remembers. Privatization. As a policy, one could justify it. But how it was implemented was not privatization. it was personalization of what was state assets. It was taking them from the public to themselves. That's what was they called privatization. You all remember the saga of Commercial Bank and Saleh, you know? So again, public assets, all public assets, Uganda Airlines. Uganda Airlines was first of all disemboweled, whatever was internal in it, in the ground handling services at Entebbe. Disemboweled. And that was taken again by Saleh and Kutesa, the ground handling of Uganda Airlines. And that's how privatization generally happened, taking what was public to the personal. And that's where also part of the official corruption is the nepotism and cronyism. Nepotism is corruption, you know. You can't serve in a cabinet with your wife, with your other relatives. The relatives he has in the cabinet, he has a number of relatives there in the cabinet. Of course, you had the people like the Kutesas, the Rwamiramas, who are there. He can't from 48 million, 46 million, you know. Then of all the soldiers, your son is the one most qualified to be the chief of defense forces, you know. Your brother in charge of wealth creation. Your in-law has a budget also to promote our exports, I don't know, and what, And the crony is appointed in parastatals, people who manage authorities and so on. Wherever there is money, they smell where there is money, you'll find a relative there. And that, if it is not corruption, what is it? Because, first of all the others who are down there, they are looking at him and also implementing what he is doing. And you can't blame them. You know, they are learning from what is going on up there. But possibly the biggest source of corruption is the disempowerment of the population whose money is being stolen. That they have no say. You can steal and do whatever and get away with it. People have no say. Whose money you are stealing have no say. Because the say of the public should come at elections. That's when people should check you. Say, no, you have not behaved well, get out. That has been obliterated completely. So in fact now it's a license. If you are a robber, they have turned it into a license. They say provided you bring something home. You know? So that some people in your home also eat something. If you are not able to get to where they are slaughtering the animal, then you should not be a leader. And so the militarization, commercialization of elections is possibly the worst enemy of dealing with corruption. Because the oversight, which should be parliament, in order to get to parliament, you need 500 million at least to enter parliament, which you would have spent. So you actually enter parliament to look for more money for the next election. That's why for me, I can't spend a lot of time talking about the corrupt MPs. It is the system in which they operate. If you are not corrupt, you will not become an MP, actually. So they must, the parliament is like a market. Whoever passes through must pay, you know, including Mr. Museveni himself. He has to pay the MPs to pass what he wants to get. And he knows if he doesn't pay, they will also raise voice on him, on what they passed for him. So, how can you deal with corruption? If the owners of the money, the people whose money they are stealing, our money, if we have no sanctions on those who steal our money, we have none. And so once that had been crushed, now the official corruption went into overdrive. At the beginning of the NRA, still Museveni was taking money from the budget, but he would hide it in the Ministry of Defense. There was a special vote there for him, which only the people of defense knew about, which was not accountable, which was only, money would only be released from it expressly on his orders. Give so and so, give so and so, give so and so. But once these other systems were completely now dealt with, he now gets it officially from Parliament. That's how this ended year of 2023-24, he spent 802 billion in the State House, while the average money for a district is 30 to 40 billion. So that is corruption. What else is it? You cannot take 802 billion for your home in a highly indebted poor country. You are the biggest corrupt entity in the country. No doubt. He cannot run away. So all the suffering, all these street children you see, well, everybody should point a finger at him, because that's where it all comes from. Then, of course, there has been the land grabbing. Again, partly official corruption. They get public land and officially give it to friends and in-laws and relatives and, you know, prime land that they are investors. They now coined that investor. Public land. Land for schools, land for university, land for hospitals. Butabika land was taken for prisons, for what, you know, wherever they, because at least people have been, at least within the law, they refuse to give him power over all other land. So now they have been just stealing the government land, largely. Also private, they come and create all kinds of situations to take public land, land grabbing, but those are generally individuals also. But the official stealing of public land is unbelievable. And possibly the worst perpetrator of all this corruption is the tenderpreneurship. That we have in the country. Every deal is sealed in State House. Every deal. State House is the clearing house of any deal. If you see whether it's a building like this coming up, you know that State House has a hand in it. If you see any factory, it was negotiated in State House. If you see any road being constructed, the one who won the tender of the road won it in the State House. To the extent I hear now he is the arbiter. Now you took the other one yesterday. Now you wait. Let this one now take this one. The other one take. That is how business is conducted in Uganda. Every investor who wants to invest in Uganda must first find a way of reaching State House. And reaching State House is through the relatives, friends, and so on. So all that and more, again, because of time I can't go in it, but what I want to demonstrate is simply that we cannot talk about corruption later on, dealing with it, ending it, fighting it, without fighting the entity called Museveni and his family. We can't. It's a joke. It's like a beehive. Can kill many bees as long as the queen is still there producing more bees. The bee, what do they call it? The bee group will remain intact. Huh? The colony. The bee group, you know, the kiswa of bees. You cannot deal with it without looking for. Or the ant hill. Ekiswa kyenyini, the kiswa. It will continue building unless you dig and get where the queen resides. So the queen of corruption is in the State House. That must be made abundantly clear. And that's why now, indeed, it's like a royal home. It's a royal home with princes and princess. They are there. The opulence in the State House is unprecedented. Opulence. Which is again part of official corruption. Opulence. Because why should a president of a highly indebted poor country, for example, buy a presidential jet at $60 or $80 million to sit at the airport doing nothing? You hire pilots, engineers, to work on it, but it's doing nothing until you want to travel abroad. It can't be internally, because internally that's the only place it can land. But we all spend, you know, and the rest of the other opulent expenditures in the State House is all part of this corruption and emulated by all the others. So that's why whoever becomes anything wants an escort. Escort you for what? You know? Escort vehicle, lead vehicle, what, you know? Including all these peasants we have been suffering with in the trenches as soon as they get into office. Because they have an example to watch from. Dealing with corruption, therefore, takes three things to my mind. First, you need a fair and accountable system. You must have an accountable system where the owners of public goods and assets have power to check those who use them. A system of checks and balances, starting with the owners of public goods and assets. That system, if it is not there, you will not deal with corruption. Secondly, you need a system of detection to alert you when corruption happens. And thirdly, you need a system of deterrence, consequences. If you were caught, then you know the consequences are coming, automatically follow. But when you can steal with impunity, as happens here, you can divide what is called the national cake the way you want, and there are no consequences, you know? You take 802 billion to your home in broad daylight, and nothing happens. The street children remain there, those without school fees remain there, those without health care remain there. Then nothing will happen. So what do we do in all this? As I have pointed out, development to impact people must be guided by policies that people have a say on. That's where it starts. We have no say on the priorities our money is applied to. We have no say. So although we want health care, only about 4%, the highest I think Uganda has spent on health care has been 7%. Otherwise it is 4%, 3% on health, on our health. No wonder people are lying on the compound in Mulago. So, although we know we need to spend more on health care, we have no voice. Although we know we need to spend more on education, we have no voice. Although we know we need to spend more on water and sanitation, on all the things that impact our bodies, our lives directly, we have no choice. We have no voice. So the starting point in solving the injustices, in solving corruption, is all for the people to have a voice. Nothing will change unless we regain our voice, influence, and power over the state of Uganda. Nothing will happen. Which is why we have been strenuously pointing especially to our elites to understand, to appreciate that the struggle the people of Uganda have today is not a struggle for leadership, which is what elections solve. Elections are supposed to select leaders. But you can't select leaders when you have no power. So we are pre-elections. The struggle we have must be, first of all, to regain control, to regain power, including to regain our vote, because a vote is a voice, which we don't have. We don't have a vote now. Yet you find people are so preoccupied with elections when we have no vote. So before the next election, before 2026, if we want 2026 to have meaning, we must have a new order in Uganda before 2026. Before the next election, we must work ourselves to get a new order in Uganda, where we have a say for ourselves in the country. And for that to happen, every Ugandan must become active, or the greatest majority at least must become active in their own cause. We must get to understand that this is not a cause for politicians alone. No. It's a cause for you in the media, it's a cause for teachers, it's a cause for soldiers, it's a cause for bishops and reverends and sheikhs and muftis, and it's our entire cause to regain control over the country. That realization must come quickly. And that together we say we shouldn't have another election before this mess, the system of mafia the mafia system they have built over Uganda before it is removed. That is the only way Uganda will be reorganized. Fortunately, now people are seeing the example in Kenya. You can now think that the Kenyan leaders, and I have seen the young people rebuff them, say, don't praise us now. The young people are refusing the praises from the leaders. Say, you are praising us so that you may survive. We will not listen to your praises. You are the problem. They no longer want to listen. The Senate in Kenya now refused to increase their salaries. The Salaries Commission increased the salaries of Kenyan Senate. And the Senate has said, no, we cannot accept salary increase. In fact, we should reduce our salaries. Because the people have told them, you will not continue doing that. That is the way to get out of this. And as you know, for us here at Katonga, that has been our singular purpose. To try and unite with everybody, because it will take the unity of all. The enemies of Uganda will try to divide those who are held captive in Uganda. If you hear anybody undermining unity of Ugandans, know that is a voice that is from the junta, seeking to keep the country in captivity. So we must unite and say enough is enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Besigye, for that elaborate explanation of the state of affairs in this country. We would want to, if there are questions, we would want to welcome a few questions. If there are no questions, then he will make a summary. You have one of the Uganda. Yes, so you can't leave me. So Dr. Besigye, come and give them a summary.
Well, the summary I can promise you will now be a summary. Olwaleero twazze kwogera ku nsonga bbiri naye nga zikwatagana. Nsonga esooka nga twagala okuddamu okutereeza n'okuluŋŋamya bulungi ebikwata ku ezo ensonga abaawamba eggwanga lino ze babadde batambuza mu mawulire nga bazikubirako pokopoko. Nsonga ezebbiri esooka yeeyo ebadde ng'eyogerwako nnyo nga bawaana eby'ettendo ebikoleddwa Mwami Museveni n'enkola ye ya gavumenti myaka kumpi 4 agayise. Fact babyongeddemu n'ebye yali akola nga tanayingira mu gavumenti byonna nga babijaguza, nga balaga tiwaliwo kinene nnyo kye tutuuseeko. Naye nga byonna bye balaga ebyo bye balina bo ng'abantu bye batuuseeko bye beezimbidde, naye nga tebiyambye muntu wa bulijjo okuba nti naye embeera ye erongooka. So boogera ku mafactory ge baakazimba, boogera ku ebiva mu mafactory ago n'ebintu ebirala, sente ezibivaamu, boogera ku masanyalaze ge bakoze boogera ku bintu bwe bityo bye bazimbye naye nga tebatutte ekiseera kwogera ku mbeera y'omuntu myaka 4 eririddawa banditegedde nti bino byonna bye boogerako tebiyambye kukyusa mbeera ya muntu owa bulijjo okulongooka wabula yeeyongera okwonooneka abaatwala obuyinza ng'omuzungu agenda baali basooddeyo ensonga 3 ze baasoosowaza ng'enkulu mu ggwanga lino nsonga ey'okuzimba okutegeera n'okugoba obutategeera ignorance kuzimba okutegeera n'okumanya mu bantu baffe ekyokubiri kuzimba obulamu obulungi mu bantu ebyobulamu ne babeera abantu nga balina ebyobulamu obulungi health n'ekyokusatu kugoba bwavu Afrika yonna bye yali etaddeko essira ebisatu kati ebyo tebakyabyogerako kubanga tebabikozeeko bye bakozeeko byakuzimba ssente n'obugagga obwabwe bw'otunuulira obwavu bwo nga bweyongera mu bantu tebabwogerako newankubadde mwami Museveni ekyo ntera kumuwulira ng'agamba nti ebirala byonna babikozeeko nti kati bagenda kukyuka badde kugoba obwavu mu nnyumba naye tagamba nti anaabugobayo atya kubanga era bye bakola teri kijja kubugobayo essente z'osika mu bantu mu misolo emiyitirivu n'olowooza nti obutono ennyo obutalabika na kulabika bw'osaasaana nti parish development model nti obwo bwe bunaaziba ebituli by'emisolo emiyitirivu gy'onyuunyuuse kuva mu bantu tekisoboka so embeera y'abantu bo yeeyongera kwonooneka muntu wa bulijjo basuumuzi mwabalaba wano nga beekalakaasa basomesa basawo baki abantu bonna abawangalira kuno abalimi abalunzi abawangalira kuno bonna abasinga obungi okujjako mwami Museveni n'ab'amaka ge n'ab'emikwano ye abamutambulirako bebokka abawambye eggwanga ne baligoboloramu ebye balina era nga bali bulungi okujaguza okubadde kololo nga kubadde kwabo of course abalala babafumbira piraawo nabo ne bajja balye nga bali bajaguza mukolo gwajjo byabatabukidde nabo abapiraawo enkuba yabagobyeyo naye nga awo we bandibadde bakoma so ye embeera nti balaga okukulaakulanya kw'eggwanga okukulaakulana kwabwe bakubalira mu kukulaakulana kw'abantu ekitali kituufu kyekisooka kye twagadde tusooleyo obwavu bweyongera ebyokusoma byongedde kwonooneka abaana abali wansi wa 25 ku buli 100 be bamala ekyomusanvu mu baana bandibadde mu masomero abali wansi wa 16 ku buli 100 be bamala siniya abali wansi w'omukaaga ku buli 100 be bamala haaya mu ggwanga eryakeera nti ligenda kuzimba okumanya n'okutegeera mu bantu baalyo awo we batuuse so tebayambye mbeera z'abantu amayumba abantu mwe basula abantu 32 ku buli 100 bakyasula mu busiisira bw'essubi mu ggwanga lyaffe ebyo bye twandibadde tutunuulidde kulaba embeera z'abantu ziri zitya si kutulaga kubo ly'entebe lye bazimbye nga sente zabbibwa ku kkubo eryo ne ze bagenda babba ku buli kantu konna ke bakola nga tezibalika ekkubo eryo erigenda ku kisaawe entebe lyerisinga okuba ery'esente ezeewaggulu eryakozesa sente ezeewaggulu ku kkubo buli kilomita yazimbibwa mu nsi yonna tewali ensi efulumya sente zenkana ezafulumya ku kkubo eryo so yebadde ensonga emu nga njagala twongere okuluŋŋamya abantu ku nsonga za propaganda waabwe bwe batambuza. Nsonga ey'okubiri ebadde ya nguzi. Nguzi nayo nga batandise kugikuutira kadingidi nti bandi banga bagirwanyisa nabo. Ekitasobokera ddala era kyengezezzaako okulaga nti enguzi gye tulaba mu Uganda nannyini yagizaala agibudaabuda n'okugiriisa kugiwa ebigyongera amaanyi ye mwami Museveni yennyini. Era nendaga nti kuviira ddala nze bwe natandika okumumanya mu nsiko abadde awagira alwanirira enkola ey'obutali bwenkanya n'obubbi gy'abadde atambuza egenze egejja nga naye obuyinza bwe bwagenda bugejja. Era ng'olwaleero enguzi yonna etandikira mu maka ge. Yatandika mpola mpola neewamba bitongole bya gavumenti, neewamba ebyobugagga eggwanga lyonna bye byali likoze twekoledde awamu ebintu byaffe ebyobugagga bw'okuva edda n'edda bwonna bwe twali tuzimbye ne babitunda nga balowoozesa abantu nti babitunda eri ababyagala abantu kinnoomu bakolemu mu ssente ezo bakolemu ebirala, naye nga ku nkomerero byafuuka byabali abawambye eggwanga lyaffe ne bakirira mu bintu ebirala byonna ebyandibadde bitambuza eggwanga n'obulamu bw'abantu. Ntemaatema ya ssente nga ntemaatema ya ssente yonna egwera sayidi emu, naye ng'ekyasinze okukola embeera eno okutambula nga bweri lwakuba eddoboozi lya bannannyini maali ebbibwa lyasooka kuzibikirwa nga ffe be babbako ssente batuzibikira emimwa, ayogera yasula mu kkomera kutuusa abantu bwe basirika balaba ababbi babalaba babamanyi, naye nga buli omu akyatidde kubaako kyayogera. Bitongole ate byandibadde byogerera abantu nga babiwamba dda nga palamenti, abadde tamanyi nti palamenti eri mu buwambe. Ndowooza mu wiiki eyise yakirabye nga mwami Museveni akomyawo budget eyava mu palamenti nga ye yali agitutteyo, naye olutuuka oluvannyuma n'asanga nga ssente ze yali ayagala zigende mu mikwano gye nga teziriimu, n'addayo azinone. Buwumbi 750 ne bwe baali bakateeka ku byobulamu nabo n'abuddayo n'abuddiza bwe yali ayagala babutwale. Loko kampani y'abagwira n'agiwa obuwumbi simanyi 3 obuvudde ku malwaliro kuki. So eyo ye official corruption, ng'ebitongole biwambe ng'abantu banannyini ssente tebalina ddoboozi. Awo we wali omutaawaana. So bino byonna kubivaamu kkiriza oba gaana kitandikira ku kubanga waliwo enkola ey'obwenkanya mu ggwanga, enkola ey'obwenkanya nga esobola kugoberera ebintu byaffe ebyawamu nga bwe bitambula. Eyo enkola tesobola kubaawo wakati mu buwambe bwe batuzimbyemu. Ekyokubiri walina okubaawo enkola erondoola kulaba ebintu byaffe nga bwe bitambula. N'ekyokusatu enkola ebonerezza abo bonna abasangibwa nga batutte bye batanditutte. Era ebintu ebyo byonna singa weebiri bano bonna benjogerako abalina obuyinza bandibadde mu makomera. So omulimu gwe tulina mu ggwanga lyaffe ogukyasingira ddala obukulu guli gumu, gwa kusooka kununula ddoboozi lyaffe n'obuyinza obusobola okulagira ebyaffe nga bwe bitambula. Ddoboozi eryo bwe tubanga tetunaba kulifuna twerimba tusobola kukyusa embeera oba tusobola n'okukyusa abakulembeze ab'obuyinza. Bakulembeze be tukyusa be bakulembeze abatalina ki, abatalina buyinza. Kukyusa LC1 actually yandiba n'obuyinza butono mu kyalo, naye abalala bandi kansala, ndi meeya waffe afulumye, mumumanyi nga bwe bamulangira ebikufulu byayambadde nti bwe bwa meeya bwoka wakola ki, wakoma. Ndi MP mwabalabye tekyali MP gw'olowooza nti waliwo MP mu Parliament. So abo abakulembeze ab'enkula bwetyo abo musobola okubakyusa, tafaayo nannyini buyinza oba mubakyusa naye kubanga obuyinza bo tebakola ki, tebabuyina. Naye bwe tubanga twagala kufuna obuyinza obwo, omulimu gwe tulina okwekolamu ogusooka gwa kununula nsi na kununula buyinza obwo kwabo ababukuuma na mmundu, ababuwambisa era ababukuumisa mmundu. Tulina okusooka tubawangule, tulwane nabo tubawangule, tweddize obuyinza obwo. Bwe tunaakoma nga tetunakikola tumanye nti ebino byonna bye twogerako tebijja kutereera. Era wenjogerera bino nga waakiri bannayuganda nabo batandise kulabira ku mbeera eri Kenya nti ebintu bisoboka. Nawulirako abamu abagamba nti Kenya lwakuba amagye tegabata Kenya batta abantu bayitirivu nnyo, nakati bakyabatta. Era nakati nabanga bajenzi babase naye basigadde bakomawo ne basoma be baseegula bagamba tusigala tuge. Naye ng'ebyokukola
NBS happening now.
Abapanze nga gundi. Musomesa waakiri asobola kusomesako mu masomero ag'enjawulo n'afunayo. Naye mu poliisi n'abali ku makubo ababaweerezaayo era bazirinze babagerekera mufulume leero munaakomawo bweziti. Bwazireeta bwazibawa tebamufuulirako, nabo ne bagabana mpaka eri. So ffenna kiseera kyakwekolamu omulimu ogwawamu, twejje mu mbeera eno eggwanga liryoke lirongooke. Abalowooleza mu kalulu ka 2026 ffenna tukaagala, nange akalulu kendwanirira, tetulwanirira kirala kyonna, tulwanirira akalulu. Naye tulina okulwanirira akalulu ak'amazima naki na bwenkanya, si kwetwala mu kalulu akatali ka amazima na bwenkanya. N'olwekyo kuva leero tuusa 2026 kitukakatako okulaba nti akalulu ka 2026 we katuukira gasi eno yenna evudde mu ddiiro, eggwanga literedde, akalulu ne kaba ka amazima naki na bwenkanya. Gwe mulimu gwe tulina okukola, gwe mulimu gwe twewa, era tujja kugukola nga bwe kisoboka. Katonda ye mubeezi waffe insha Allah. Mwebale nnyo, mwebalire ddala.
Tweyanza nnyo, tweyanzeege gasiya tumwere adde ebbali tusobole okulaba nga ebintu bitambula. Mwebale nnyo, mwebalire ddala. Ndowooza annyonnyodde ekimala kyetagasa na kibuuzo. Tweyanza nnyo, tweyanzeege.
NBS happening now.